Well, Kenya has been trying to quell the turbulent political landscape in the country following last week's public protests. President William Ruto has called for Kenyans to submit to the rule of law following violent protests and the invasion and looting of former President Uhuru Kenyatta's Northlands farm on Monday amid anti-government protests. The Nation, which is one of the country's media publications, reported that two MPs, a former governor and a popular Kiambu musician, are among those who fueled the mobilization of gangs. Well, we've got with us Professor Macharia Munene, who is a professor of history and international relations at the United States International University that's based in Nairobi, Kenya, to chat to us. Professor, thanks for your time. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you.
So we are watching some of the turmoil that is happening in Kenya, where it's manifesting what appears to be a lot of criminality happening. I mean, videos are emerging of people carrying sheep reported to be from former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta's farm. What exactly is happening in Kenya, and what is fueling all of this anger?
Well, thank you. I think it's demonstrations going haywire, but those demonstrations are real political maneuvers by various leaders, and then some people taking over to indulge in some aspects of politically related criminality. And what has happened is that what usually appears to be normal in terms of demonstrations and riots it's taken a notch higher, that the interests of the big political players are also now affected, because usually the demonstrations tend to affect small operators, businesses here and there, who close their businesses to avoid being caught in the damage that comes up. Now, political players have seemingly upped the ante, and we are now seeing some of that ramifications. It is It happened in some isolated places in Nairobi. It happened in Kisumu. It happened in Migori. But generally, the rest of the country is quiet, observing. But there are those areas that there is generated excitement in the confrontation.
Many saying this is politically motivated. I mean, let's focus a little bit on the invasion of Kenyatta's farm, which many are saying are planned. It was then followed by looting and theft of livestock, also attacks on journalists. Talk to us a little bit more about the issue that this may have been politically motivated.
Well, all demonstrations are politically motivated. There's no demonstration which is honest or just demonstration on its own. It's politically organized by various people who have made it very clear why they are doing it. The attack on Uhuru's farm, one of huge piece of land, and the attack on Raila Odinga's cylinder-producing factory in Nairobi. These were political moves, just as the demonstrations themselves were political moves. It sends a chilling message that no one is immune, no one is free to be free when the others are not free. And so it is, yes, politically motivated, and the people who organize it are yet to be understood, to be known very well. And yes, there is that claim that some particular people, with regard to the attack on Uhuru's farm and Raila's factory, could have been the one. There could be more than that. The same thing as the demonstrations are the same, were politically organized by political leaders, knowing that things might happen.
So there's reports that are doing the rounds, and perhaps maybe you're able to shed a little bit more light on this, that the demonstrations were hatched by 2 MPs and a former governor. Reports also place 78-year-old opposition leader Raila Odinga, who was defeated for the 5th time in the last presidential elections, into this as well, and may be accused of fueling these events. And he said Monday's protests were meant to be peaceful demonstrations. Has he cleared his name on the allegations levelled against him, or taken responsibility for the chaos that happened in his name?
Well, he has not cleared his name, although he has tried to claim. Yes, he's the one who called for demonstrations, and being the clever politician that he is, he said they were going to be peaceful. Enough. Now, the allegations that have been made is that he called them for political reasons because he wants power. He wants to remove President Ruto from office and take over, and demonstrations would be one way of putting pressure. Maybe he can get something. Previously, his behavior has been that pattern. Organize demonstrations, make the country ungovernable, and then have some discussions as to how he gets into power, get something in it. There is that pattern that is very clear. The allegations that have been made is that it's not just Raila alone, that even President Uhuru Kenyatta is involved in those strategies of making the country ungovernable. That's the allegation. And then you have those who are saying if that is what is going on, they also should have a taste of the disruptions that come with the demonstrations, because demonstrations, and there are people who are almost professionals in creating chaos during demonstrations, and they're very active. So you have some new dynamics coming in, sending message that no one is safe anywhere with demonstrations, which are really creating underdevelopment in the country, particularly where they do happen.
Yeah, rising cost of living, it's a thing that I think the world over is struggling with. And I know that it was yesterday or the day before, interest rates were hiked in Nairobi as well, 25 basis points. Funnily enough, we're in the same position as well, looking at raising by the same margin here in South Africa. And many Kenyans struggling to get by with this rising cost of living. And they're looking to leadership to say, well, how are you going to help us? Is this also at the heart of what's going on? Besides the whole political aspect of demand to open up and find out who actually won these elections, because there's also doubt over the election process and that it was free and fair.
Well, the cost of living and the deteriorating economy does not make President Ruto look very good. In fact, he's in a lot of trouble because of that, given that even the people who supported him and voted for him are feeling the pinch and are not happy with the way things are going. They're also not happy with some things that President Ruto and his deputy have done or said, which instead of creating an atmosphere of reconciliation seem to be more confrontational than anything else. So the cost of living is hurting everybody, and people are feeling, and there are those who then take advantage of that to play political games with it. But in the final analysis, these demonstrations are political, and their aim is to change government, the regime change strategy, or if not regime change, then of course the minimum power sharing strategy. How far it will go is another matter, and because both sides are now adamant, it looks as if it might go on. Although there are signs of petering out. The other day, the governor of Kisumu made a move to say that let's stop these things in his place. But then he changed his mind very quickly after he was put under pressure that he had no business saying such a thing, being a very strong supporter of Raila Odinga. So he was casting some doubt as to whether they should be going on, because Kisumu is hurting, and it was really awkward for the governor to be seen demonstrating against himself in this regard. But it boils down to a political game and for power. The bad economy just fuels and makes it more interesting.
It
there are always
does.
those people.
It does, and
Yeah.
of course it fuels the populace as well, who are angry by, you know, this cost of living. What I need to just speak to you as well about is just two other issues as we wrap up. We've only got about 2 minutes left, but we know that the president is in Germany. Is he still in Germany? I know there are meetings, and he's been talking out that, you know, whatever violence is happening, he wants the arrest of people to take place. But is he still in Germany? Is he back in the country? When is he expected to come back into the country?
Well, he's returning to the country today. Okay. By this evening, he should be back in the country. Now, the trip to Germany and Belgium was planned before the demonstrations, although there is a rumor that he was running away from the reality, which is not the case. But what these demonstrations do is that they put the president in a very awkward situation, that if he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. He's supposed to be in charge. And one of the things that the demonstrations show or try to show is that he's not in control of the country. And if he's not in the control of the country, then maybe he should not be the president. That appears to be that one of the challenges facing him. Now, if he does nothing, then it will be evidence that he's not in control. And there are some things that happen that show that he's not in control. You have Raila Odinga calling for holidays and people not going to work, although there was that contradiction of his factory, people working in his factory, while the rest have closed. There was that contradiction. So if Ruto fails to act, he's in trouble. Mm. If he acts, he's still in trouble because he will be blamed for everything and anything, some fairly and some not fairly. So the challenge for him is, how does he act in such a credible way that he appears to be in charge and he cools down the country? He does not seem to have the way out at present, but that's the dilemma that he faces. Yeah. He acts, to show that he's in charge, and then he's blamed. He doesn't act, he's blamed for failure to act.
Indeed.
My final awkward situation.
Professor Munene, one last question is that obviously we've heard from the AU who are saying they're a bit worried about the situation. There are human rights groups that are worried about the situation. Religious leaders are actually stating they're very, very worried that, I know you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that it's very, at the moment it's not nationwide, there's certain pockets, but as I was mentioning, religious organizations worrying that this may spread and we may see the violence that erupted in 2007 happening again in Kenya, which resulted in about 1,000 people dying. Do you believe this could result in widespread violence once again in Kenya?
Well, it is a concern, but I don't think it will go that way. I think the likelihoods of things sobering down, and yes, the religious bodies, particular religious bodies, have been calling for calming and for the two people to talk, but that is very good. The only problem with this thing is that it does not address the primary problem in the country. And the primary problem is whether or not the system should be allowed to work. That's the main thing. Because the elections were held, follow the systems, and everything is, the AU and everyone, it all said this was the result. But then the candidate who lost refuses to lose. And because he refuses to lose, the country is then put in a dilemma. What then should happen? A lot of explanations have been given which are fallacious. You claim, the winner-take-all thing is the problem. That's not true. It is an attitude issue. Does a person who contests accept the reality of the result or not? Mm-hmm. And until that is sorted out, not now or future, until it is sorted out, we will continue having those problems. But I don't think we are going to have the kind of damage and the chaos that was witnessed in 2008. Okay. It will not happen.
All right. We'll leave it there, Professor. Thanks for talking to us. Professor Macharia Munene is a Professor of History and International Relations at the United States International University that's based in Nairobi, Kenya, talking to us about the recent political developments in Kenya. President expected back in Kenya today, so we'll see how that is taken with his return.